Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:07, and it is Monday morning in your nation's capital, the 15th day of September, and we're in this together, folks. Let's stick together, please. In fact, I think we're more together than we've ever been. Coming up at 7:05, Joe DeGeneva will be joining us. 7:35, Rob O'Donnell. 8:05, David Bozell. 8:35, Adam Gillette. I'm Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Julie, I missed you the last couple of days, my friend.
Thank you.
These are stories that you want. You want everyone you know, surrounding you.
Yes.
And
yeah.
That said, I did not go to the vigil last night in Washington, D.C. at the Kennedy Center. And you didn't either. I checked with all. I sent out a group text to my fellow hosts here on the station to see if they were going to go. And it's weird. This Sunday night we all had something happening.
I did on late last week. Molly Hemingway, and I can say this because she did tweet it, her church had a vigil, which was so wonderful. And I was so grateful to her church for having that vigil for Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
And it was lots of singing, hymns, and lots of tears. And Molly was there, of course. So I did go to that, and it was smaller, but to be honest with you, just because I was doing the show in the morning, I wanted to get good rest.
That was a big part of it for me.
Yeah.
Going into D.C. in a big crowd and all the parking and the traffic and all that stuff was going to put both of us back pretty late to wake up this morning. And I wanted to save all of my energy.
Right, me too.
But
I'm so
show.
glad. I'm so grateful that the Kennedy Center hosted it.
Yes, me too. Totally. But I'll also be completely honest, because I can't help but be completely honest on this show. Sadly, oftentimes to my own demise, I'm too honest. I don't want to be with anybody right now, other than like this. All of my socialization and my social interaction is going to be, for a little while, is going to be like this on my program, on my show. That's it. I just don't. I have been hunkered down since this happened. And I went outside of my home to walk around outside. I've either been in my car or in my home or in the studio, and that's it. And I've either cooked at home or I've ordered food in from home. I went outside. Meredith went to church yesterday. I did not go to church yesterday. I apologize. I know it's wrong. I walked outside. And I walked around my block, and it was hard. I'm going through something with this.
I know.
And I'm feeling super shaky about a lot. And I got to break it, and I hopefully will sometime midweek this week.
If I can just say something, I mentioned I saw Molly and Molly Hemingway late last week, and we were both a mess. And I think about people in our orbit who do these things, go to college campuses or can attract big crowds. That certainly isn't me. I know you do, Larry. You go, and a lot of people turn out to see you talk and speak, and you do a lot of public speaking. And I can't help but think about those people and their families, the spouses of people who do sort of generate big crowds on the right. And how I think about Ben Shapiro, right? I can't stop thinking about Ben Shapiro. I can't stop thinking about Dave Rubin. I can't stop thinking about some of these people who generate these enormous crowds and really courageously go out on college campuses and talk to these kids and try to persuade them, and how scary it must be for those folks. And so I think there's probably been a lot of hunkering down this weekend. Yeah. But I have to also say I'm so proud of people for saying, well, we're going to continue doing what we're doing. Accepting the risks, because it is a risk, I think, for people on our side.
Yeah, no, listen, and any public appearance I ever have is nothing compared to any of the people that you just mentioned, and you're right. And my interest in not wanting to be out and socializing has nothing to do with my own personal safety.
No, I know,
it's just,
I know.
I just feel so.
But I do
it's
feel
hard.
bad.
It's hard.
I do feel bad for people, and I know their spouses have got to be worried. I know they,
Yes.
I
know. And I've interacted. By the way, I've checked in with Ben Shapiro. He's doing okay, and he's doubling down. And Daily Wire and the teams that he works with are redoubling their efforts to ensure safety and security. But at the same time, we all know the business that we're in. It's just hard to put into words exactly what's happening, and I think part of it is because of his age and knowing all of his potential and everything that he could have been. And look at everything that he did do and accomplish and continues to even post-death. That's why the turnout at the Kennedy Center was so remarkable. They had to turn people away at the door, even though it was a pre-registered event. A lot of luminaries on stage, including, let's start here, cut 10, Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence. Take a listen.
I had a friend of mine who sent me a text the day after Charlie was killed, really distraught. And she said, "What do we do now? I know the answer should be love. The answer should be peace, but Charlie tried that and it didn't work." And my response to her was, no, it did work. Powerfully.
A little bit more from Tulsi Gabbard last night.
Those who are full of anger and hopelessness and hate right now, some of them protesting outside this hall today, unfortunately, they do not have the spiritual happiness that Charlie experienced. They're empty. And this is where their anger is coming from. It is their rejection of God, their desire to be God, and therefore they have made God their enemy. I have hope today that every one of us will do our best to shine the light of God's love in our lives and in our work, that we will treat each other with aloha, respect, and stand strong and unshakable in the defense of our God-given rights and freedoms. May God bless you all, and may God bless this great nation. Aloha.
Can't help but put that Hawaii stuff in there, and I love it. Cut 12, Representative Anna Paulina Luna of Florida.
As I sat there next to him, student after student approached the debate, often with heated emotions, but Charlie remained cool, calm, and logical, and one by one, no matter how controversial the question was, he would dismantle them with his reasoning. And that's when I realized something. Charlie Kirk didn't need college. College needed Charlie Kirk.
A little bit more from last night's vigil at the Kennedy Center in the concert hall, and also some vigils and memorials and assemblies all around this nation yesterday and over the weekend. We'll tell you all the details coming up in a moment. It's 6:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Next couple of years, our friendship blossomed. He ended up being the primary architect of my unification with President Trump, which
That is an incredible revelation last night at the vigil for Charlie Kirk at the Kennedy Center, announced by Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the building, of course, named after his uncle, who was the victim of a political assassination from a left-wing communist nut. Bobby Kennedy revealing that Charlie Kirk was the primary architect of the unification between Kennedy and Trump. If this is true, and there's no reason to doubt it, although we have not heard about it until now, he was 30 at the time, last year, during the presidential election. This 30-year-old young man engineered one of the most consequential political affiliations and electoral successes of anybody. You take a back seat, Karl Rove. Sit down, David Axelrod. James Carville, shut your mouth and learn something, because those geniuses that still lecture us about our politics and are more than welcome to sit on the Sunday shows and on the cable and broadcast networks as political experts, none of them were able to accomplish this genius, masterful feat of political alignment that apparently Charlie Kirk dreamed up and successfully executed, merging the Robert F. Kennedy world with MAGA, thus creating the Maha movement that, I'm sorry, I will never, ever be convinced wasn't the single most important consequential development in the 2025 presidential election. I remember saying the day that it happened, not knowing that Charlie had anything to do with it, I said, this is the game changer. This will change this election. And it was Charlie. I was a 30-year-old without a college education that did it.
Think about the humility. Think about in this town where people brag about removing staples, okay?
Yeah.
From a and honestly, and think about the humility that he didn't brag about this. He didn't talk about it. All he did was celebrate President Trump. All he did was advance his agenda, do what he could to advance, to explain, to humanize Trump, to do everything he could to support Trump. He didn't take any credit for, you're right, I think that alliance, it was the most important part of his victory, of Trump's victory.
Oh, and it never leaked. Never.
Right.
Never leaked to the media. It was everybody wants to take credit. Everybody wants to pat themselves on the back. And here we learn after his death, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. reveals that it was Charlie Kirk who brought the two of them together and created that alliance.
In this town, you have people who have framed pictures on the wall when they're in the fourth row standing behind Reagan, right? It's like the top of their head. And people are like, I was the I actually did. I went to a neighborhood party, and anybody listening from Alexandria will know this person I'm talking about. She constantly brags about her father-in-law being part of the Reagan administration. I mean, which is great, because in Alexandria people don't generally do that. Right, but it is. I mean, this town, it just is so, everybody has a story and something to brag about. And the fact that this never leaked, he never took credit for this, it's just...
That's right. Well, you know why? Because he's not in this town. The most important Washington, D.C. political figure of the last election cycle isn't from Washington, D.C. And that's another reason why a lot of people here still send hate Charlie Kirk's way. Bobby Kennedy yesterday, a little bit more from him at the vigil.
A 17-year-old niece left for Europe to go to college. And while she was packing, her mother, Amaryllis, my daughter-in-law, noticed that she had put a Bible in her suitcase. And Amaryllis was curious about it. And she asked her, and Zoe said to her, I want to live like Charlie Kirk.
That's quite a legacy, too. A little bit more here. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Genetically is inclined to deliver some pretty inspirational political words, and he delivered last night.
And I had a conversation once with Charlie where we were talking about the danger that we both faced from challenging entrenched interests. And he asked me if I was scared to die. And I said to him, there's a lot worse things than dying. And one of those... the chief among those is losing our constitutional rights and having our children raised in slavery. And I I said to him at that time, I said, sometimes our only consolation is that we can die with our boots on. We can die fighting for these things. Charlie gave his life so that the rest of us would not have to suffer those fates worse than death. Now it's our job, he's no longer there to lead us, to rush in and fill the breach and win this battle for our country, for God, and for our families. Thank you all.
We've got much more to come this morning. Keep it here. 6:23.
We've been talking a lot about the vigil at the Kennedy Center, but that wasn't the only one. There were vigils around the world. We'll tell you about them. Keep it here. It's 6:30.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:37 now. It's O'Connor and Company. You're listening to Larry and Julie this Monday morning as we reflect on the weekend's events, memorializing Charlie Kirk, inspired by Charlie Kirk, and yes, angry at what the political left and the media continue to insist on here in this country, trying to gaslight, lie, and deceive and manipulate all of us. But we're much wiser than we ever used to be, and we're much wiser than they think. Coming up at 7:05, Joe DeGenova will be our guest. At 7:35, Rob O'Donnell on the murder investigation. 8:05, David Bozell on the media. And 8:35, Adam Gullette on the extraordinary occurrence of people in very public life celebrating the assassination of a 31-year-old father of two toddlers. And if you call that out and they end up getting fired or lose some kind of public status because of their hate, apparently we're engaged in cancel culture, Julie. We'll talk about that with Adam Gullette. I am Larry O'Connor. That's Julie Gunlock, who I keep referring to. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
I'm still blown away by those remarks by Bobby Kennedy Jr. This is a town of, political geniuses. You can't go anywhere without stumbling over a political genius, like Jonah Goldberg and Steve Hayes. And these are the people that get big contracts on the networks to sit there and give their opinion about politics. And James Carville, they continue to drag him out to talk about elections. And, he hasn't worked on a campaign in decades, right? Karl Rove continues to be the genius on Fox News to tell you all about politics. Charlie Kirk, a 30-year-old, last year he was 30, without a college education, somebody who they laughed at and mocked and downgraded and denigrated.
We both heard it. We
heard it from, and by the way, from people who call themselves Republicans in this town, who would say, he's just... And they would mock his intelligence. They would mock his style. Whatever. I
know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Larry, because I know you. But it was interesting. A writer for Commentary, okay, like very respectable Republicans work at Commentary. Okay, he tweeted. I thought this was so interesting. He tweeted. He said, I used to dismiss Charlie Kirk as just kind of a stunt guy, right? Goes to campuses and does these stunts. He goes, I have spent the last couple days reviewing his videos. He goes, I'd never watched one, right? So he dismisses him out of hand. Yeah. Turns out he'd never watched one. He goes, I've spent days watching his videos of him engaging with students, and he had nothing but compliments for Charlie Kirk. Said, he was such an impressive guy. So it's so funny to me. So many of these people who kind of dismissed him, they didn't watch. They didn't know what he was doing. Go on.
Well, listen, I'm glad that he at least admits it now. After
no, exactly. I give him all the
Wonderful
credit.
that he does, but yeah. I'm just still blown away by the fact that he was sort of, looked down upon by the smart set in this town, and yet not one of them, none of your Karl Rove, your James Carville, not one of them could have ever succeeded in the greatest political realignment of modern American history, and I'm not overstating the case here. You know, you can argue that when Reagan put together his coalition of libertarians, national security hawks, neocons, and the Christian right, that was a coalition that won the day. That was huge. That was also 50 years ago. Charlie Kirk put together RFK Jr. and Donald Trump just through the sheer magnetism of his will and his personality, and forged that alliance that nobody would have ever seen coming. Bobby Kennedy and Donald Trump, are you kidding me? But he figured out a way to get those two individuals to find common ground personally, and also find those two political factions to find common ground, where the Maha people were able to say, yeah, listen, I don't like Trump and I disagree with this. And these, by the way, these are white suburban women, mothers, right, who were very much leading the Maha thing, who were, I'm told, all they cared about was Bobby Kennedy Jr. was a left-wing climate change zealot, pro-abortion zealot. And Charlie Kirk convinced him to set those things aside to forge a political partnership with Donald Trump. Donald Trump was able to put those things aside to form that partnership so that they could both succeed. I keep hearing that we're supposed to, set aside party differences and figure out what we have in common and work together. That's literally what Charlie Kirk did last year in the election, bringing Trump the victory. And Bobby Kennedy announcing that at the vigil last night is still has knocked me over, that Kirk was able to do that. And none of the genius in this town even imagined such a thing.
And again, no leaks, no bragging,
right.
No, going on podcasts talking about how he engineered this. Nope. What a sign of deep humility. Incredible.
Absolutely incredible. All right, a little bit more. In Tennessee, a beautiful vigil. In a spot, by the way, Riley Gaines posted this. Small towns, like D.C. is a pretty big place, and without much publicity or fanfare, they overflowed the Kennedy Center. And then when you go to small towns, I saw Huntington Beach, California, down by the boardwalk in Huntington Beach, absolutely overflowing sea of humanity. Riley Gaines tweeted out a picture of a small town in Tennessee. This isn't Memphis. This isn't Nashville. But then you go to some of the big cities. Houston. Houston was absolutely overflowing, like thousands of people at that vigil. There was and in New York City, by the way, left wing about to elect a communist, New York City, with crowds chanting "Charlie, Charlie, Charlie." Turning Point. Erica Kirk, Charlie's widow, gave a 15-minute live stream speech Friday night. She was distraught. She is angry. There was criticism of her. Why is she so angry? Seriously.
I know.
Are you kidding me? Why is she so angry?
Yeah. I honestly, the strength that took, but it also, I think people were expected the typical forgiveness, let's move on, let's come together, and
get along.
God bless her. God bless her. She's like, no, you have no idea what you've started. Great line. That's right.
You have awoken a giant, and to that end, Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's organization, which absolutely will go on, has now announced 18,000 new chapters of people who reached out and said, how can I be a part of this, that have now will spring up on campuses and high school campuses as well, all across the country. They also announced that his show will continue, his radio talk show on the Salem Network, as well as his podcast. In fact, he's got a special fill-in guest today on his show. Vice President J.D. Vance will be filling in for Charlie Kirk today. We've got more. Stay right here. It's O'Connor and Company, and it's 6:44.
Later this morning on the Chris Plant Show, what does Hunter Biden have to do with the psychotic Democrat killer that assassinated Charlie Kirk? 9 a.m. on WMAL.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing that from Chris Plant, as I'm sure you are as well. So let's get back to Erica Kirk and her stoic yet emotional remarks from Friday night. Who, I have friends and family members who were shook to the heart by what happened to Charlie Kirk. Obviously, if you weren't, there's something wrong with you. And I was actually I was concerned about some of them, about them slipping into a deep depression, fear. hopelessness, etc., which is an easy thing to do when something like this happens. After Erica Kirk's speech, I heard from one of them that said, I am ready to charge through a brick wall right now.
That is so funny.
And if that was the intention, it's really funny because I truly was. I was like, oh God, we've lost this person. Now they're going to be just so hopeless and so depressed. And so, an Eeyore, as I like to say, an Eeyore. And he was like, "Oh, I'm Team Erica now. Let's go. What do you need? What do you need?"
There was, I think, the fear of the couch potatoism becoming like a serious issue with people and you and I both kind of hunkered down.
Well, what's funny is that's exactly what I did. I'm usually the no, come on guys, we can do this. And I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm taking a week off. That's it.
Right.
Here,
she did electrify. Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Here is Erica Kirk, the widow of Charlie Kirk.
The evildoers responsible for my husband's assassination have no idea what they have done. They killed Charlie because he preached a message of patriotism, faith, and of God's merciful love. They should all know this. If you thought that my husband's mission was powerful before, you have no idea. You have no idea what you just have unleashed across this entire country and this world. You have no idea. You have no idea the fire that you have ignited within this wife. The cries of this widow will echo around the world like a battle cry. To everyone listening tonight across America, the movement my husband built will not die. It won't. I refuse to let that happen. It will not die. All of us will refuse to let that happen. No one will ever forget my husband's name, and I will make sure of it. It will become stronger, bolder, louder, and greater than ever. My husband's mission will not end, not even for a moment.
Well done, young lady. You haven't
From
seen
here on
the
out,
last
we will have a hanky warning before we
sorry
play
about
these
that.
clips because
crying alert. It is 6:53.